Welcome to the Deep Dive. We've got some really fascinating source material this time, all focusing on neural implants.
Yeah, it's a topic that's moving so fast.
Absolutely. So for this deep dive, we're really going to dig into how this whole idea of, connecting brains directly to machines is shifting from just science fiction to something real.
Exactly. The papers and articles you pull together really paint that picture. So our mission today, I guess, is to unpack where neural implant tech is right now, look at the potential, which is huge, and also touch on some of the pretty significant questions popping up.
Okay, great. Let's jump right in. When we talk about neural implants, we're fundamentally talking about brain-computer interfaces, right? BCIs. So simply put, these are systems that let the brain talk directly to some kind of external device.
Yeah, bypassing the usual routes like moving your hands or speaking. It's a direct line.
A direct line for interacting with computers,
Yeah.
maybe prosthetic limbs, even potentially other people, without the usual physical stuff.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And the first big push where this really started showing promise was in medicine.
Right. I remember reading about that back in the early 2000s.
Yeah, around then, we saw these really quite remarkable demonstrations. You had individuals completely paralyzed who could control a computer cursor.
Just by thinking.
Just by thinking. Or even move a robotic arm. They were using signals picked up either by EEG, those caps with electrodes on the scalp, or sometimes with electrodes placed directly into the brain tissue.
Wow. So even back then, the potential for helping people with severe motor issues was clear.
Definitely. It was a powerful proof of concept.
And things have obviously moved on a lot since then. We're seeing companies like Neuralink, Synchron,
Yeah.
plus loads of academic labs pushing things forward.
For sure, the pace is accelerating.
One thing that really stood out from the materials was that milestone in 2022, Synchron.
Ah, yes, that was significant.
They implanted a device and someone could actually send emails, texts, just using their thoughts.
And the key thing there, which the Oxley paper highlighted, was how they did it.
It wasn't open brain surgery, was it?
No, exactly. It was minimally invasive. They used a device called a stentrode, delivered through blood vessels.
So potentially safer, more accessible.
That's the hope. It represents a really big step compared to, traditional neurosurgery. It really underlines this convergence of brain and machine. We're moving beyond just basic control now.
Okay, so let's get into the nuts and bolts a bit.
Yeah.
How does this thought-to-action thing actually work? It still sounds a little magical.
Hey, well, it's less magic, more sophisticated signal processing. At its heart, it's about listening to the brain's electrical chatter.
Are neurons firing?
Exactly. Neurons communicate using tiny electrical pulses. Neural implants are designed to eavesdrop on these signals. The process, broadly, has 3 stages.
Okay.
First, signal acquisition. The electrodes, whether they're on your scalp, slipped into a blood vessel, or right in the brain tissue, they pick up that neural activity.
Got it. Listening in.
Second, signal decoding. This is the really clever part. Algorithms translate those raw, noisy signals into what the person intends to do, like move cursor left or type the letter B.
So turning brain noise into actual commands.
You got it. And third, output execution. Those decoded commands get sent to the device, the computer, the robotic arm, whatever it is, and it carries out the action.
Acquisition, decoding, execution.
Okay. And you mentioned different kinds of electrodes or implants. Can you break those down a bit?
Sure. So you've got the non-invasive kind. EEG caps are the classic example, easy to put on, no surgery. But this signal isn't super precise because it has to travel through the skull.
Right, makes sense.
Then you have minimally invasive. Synchron stentrode is a good example here. It goes inside a blood vessel close to the brain. Better signal than EEG and avoids open brain surgery.
Okay, a middle ground.
Sort of. And finally, fully invasive. This is like Neuralink's approach with tiny threads or electrodes placed directly into the brain.
That sounds... It is. It gives you the best, most detailed signal by far. But naturally, it comes with the highest surgical risks and potential long-term issues.
So there's a trade-off between invasiveness and signal quality.
Absolutely. And it's not just the hardware, the implant itself. The software doing that decoding is just as critical, maybe even more so now.
Right, the algorithms. I remember reading that AI and deep learning are playing a huge role here.
Oh, completely. The progress in decoding is staggering, largely thanks to machine learning. That Willett paper from Nature Reviews Neuroscience you sent.
Yeah.
It really drives this home. They showed how advanced algorithms can now look at brain activity and not just decode simple movements, but predict entire phrases someone is about to say.
Before they say them.
Yeah, just from the neural signals associated with the intention to speak. We're moving from basic clicks and cursor moves towards potentially communication at the speed of thought.
That's mind-blowing, actually. So, okay, with that kind of power, what can we actually do with this technology? Where is it being applied?
Well, the most immediate impact, and arguably the most important right now, is in medicine.
Restoring function for people.
Exactly. Think about people with locked-in syndrome. Completely aware but unable to move or speak. BCIs are already giving some of these individuals a voice again, letting them communicate.
That's life-changing.
Totally. And enabling people with paralysis to control prosthetic limbs, regain some independence. We've also had Kalali implants for years. That's a type of neural implant restoring hearing.
Right.
And there's really exciting work on retinal implants, sort of like bionic eyes, that could potentially restore some level of vision for people with certain kinds of blindness. These aren't just sci-fi dreams. They're becoming real therapies.
Amazing. But it's not just medical, is it? Some of the sources mentioned military applications, too.
That's true. It's an area being actively explored. Agencies like DARPA have funded research into things like, well, pilots controlling drones just with their thoughts. Yeah. Or soldiers maybe coordinating silently on the battlefield using neural signals. There's even research like that Swan paper mentioned looking into potentially enhancing memory directly or augmenting decision-making.
Wow. Okay, that opens up a whole different set of possibilities and maybe concerns. But what about everyday life? For, regular consumers, is this something we might see?
It's definitely on the horizon, though maybe not tomorrow. In the nearer term, imagine controlling your smart home. Dim the lights, change the music, adjust the thermostat, just by thinking it.
No more hunting for the remote or yelling of Alexa?
Maybe. Or think about creativity. Artists or musicians composing or creating visual art directly from their imagination.
Just thinking the music into existence.
Potentially. And virtual reality could become way more immersive if it could respond not just to your movements, but maybe even your emotional state, read directly from the brain.
And then there's the idea of, neuroenhanced learning, boosting memory.
That's further out, probably, but it's being discussed. The potential applications start to feel almost limitless. It really does circle back to that phrase we saw.
If you can think it, you can do it.
Kind of literally, yeah.
Okay. So this all sounds incredibly powerful, which inevitably brings us to the bigger picture, the ethical side.
Right. And these are really important conversations to be having now before the technology becomes widespread. There's some fundamental questions.
Like what? What should we be thinking about?
Well, first off, data privacy. We worry about our emails or browsing history being hacked. What about our brain data? Who owns your thoughts if they're stored on a server?
Yeah, that's a big one. Can your brain be hacked? Could someone potentially influence your thoughts or actions through an implant?
That's a major concern, especially as we move towards two-way interfaces. Then there's the potential for inequality. What happens if some people have cognitive enhancements and others don't? Does it create a new kind of social divide?
A neurodivide.
Possibly. And what about free will? If algorithms can predict our choices or intentions before we're even fully aware of them ourselves, what does that mean for our sense of agency?
It really challenges some core ideas about ourselves. I saw the term cognitive sovereignty mentioned.
Yes, from the Swan paper again. The idea that you have a fundamental right to control your own thoughts, free from external manipulation. It's a concept we haven't really needed to define legally before.
And our current laws, like GDPR for data privacy, they probably don't cover brain data adequately, do they?
Not really. Brain data is uniquely personal, potentially revealing far more than traditional data. The legal frameworks need to catch up.
And you mentioned two-way interfaces. What are the implications there? It's not just reading from the brain, but potentially writing to it.
Exactly. The potential for therapy is huge, maybe correcting faulty neural circuits in depression or epilepsy. But the flip side is, could machines write back in ways that alter our feelings, our memories, even our sense of self?
Could it change who we are?
That's the profound question, isn't it? Where does the technology end and the person begin?
It's a lot to grapple with. Looking ahead then, what are some of the predictions? Where might this all be heading?
Well, some experts are throwing out some pretty bold timelines. There's talk that implants could become maybe not ubiquitous, but certainly more common, perhaps like smartphones are today, by sometime in the 2030s.
Wow, that's not far off.
And looking even further, maybe towards the middle of the century, some speculate about direct brain-to-brain communication becoming feasible.
Like telepathy.
Sort of a technologically mediated version, perhaps? It raises the question of whether language itself might even become less central if we can share thoughts directly.
That's a radical thought.
It is. And people like Elon Musk have been very public about Neuralink's ambitions, not just fixing brain diseases or paralysis, but ultimately aiming for some kind of merger between human consciousness and AI.
Solving major health problems, enhancing ourselves, merging with AI. It really forces you to ask, is this the next logical step in human evolution?
Or is it a step that fundamentally changes what it means to be human? That's the crux of it, I think.
It seems like the real frontier isn't just outer space anymore, but maybe inner space,
Yeah.
the mind itself.
That's a great way to put it. The complexities and potential within our own minds are proving to be vast and perhaps the most transformative territory we can explore.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, we really want to leave you, our listeners, chewing on some of these ideas. What's your gut reaction to all this?
Yeah. Would you get a neural implant? Even for a medical reason? What about for enhancement?
Would you be comfortable having your thoughts read? Or potentially someday written to? Does the very nature of thought change when it can be instantly translated into reality or shared directly?
These aren't easy questions. There are no simple answers right now.
Absolutely not. But they're questions we need to start asking ourselves. We genuinely love to hear your perspectives on this. Thanks for joining us in this exploration. The power of the mind and the technologies interacting with it are only going to become more central to our future. So keep thinking, keep connecting, and stay curious.